Hello everyone. I was in Greenwich recently and it was a very hot day, and public transport going out to Greenwich had been very congested and busy. So on a whim I thought I would catch a cruise boat back to the centre of London, stay out in the fresh air. Big mistake. I had in mind it would be something like a Vaporetto type of boat that they have in Venice, more sort of public amenity. But in fact, as I say, it was a cruise vessel and packed full of tourists. But I took some footage on the way, and I was in two minds about putting it up on YouTube, but I think I will. It's kind of not marred, but it's heavily affected by the commentary that one of the crew members was giving for the tourists, and I wondered whether I was kind of infringing on some kind of copyright by putting it up, but I haven't deliberately recorded his words. They're broken and interrupted, so you don't get the full flow of them. But I thought it was interesting, partly to show you what the Thames, the East End of London looks like from the river now. It's changed completely since my youth, whereas it was once still warehouses and sort of fairly derelict area that still had some commercial activity. Now it's given over to residential properties and a big financial district on Canary Wharf, obviously. So it's been completely transformed. But I thought it was interesting from the point of view of just showing people what it looks like now, but also if you actually pay attention to the words of the crew member who's giving a little bit of narration as you go along. It's very interesting, I think, how sort of almost historical kind of myths get mixed in to popular history, and a lot of it was, factually suspect, shall we say, but he managed to throw in lots of sort of sensational aspects of history, from Jack the Ripper through to the Black Death. Even got to mention piracy. Wapping was there was an execution dock at Wapping where lots of pirates were executed, and you still see remnants of edifices like that along the river. But the actual, if you took your history from tour guides going around London, you get a very kind of distorted aspects of history. But it's interesting to see how history kind of gets embedded into the folk memory, as it were. Anyway, enough waffle. Hope you enjoy.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and welcome on board the Millennium of Peace. See, we've left Greenwich, and we're heading inbound to the Tower of London and to Westminster. We give you a safety announcement to the new properties on the river to let you. look at Canary Wharf from a bird's eye view, you can see the tall tower in the middle and the buildings either side of it. They represent the three-coin plug, and that shows the power the area retains on the right-hand side. And the area islands, that's where the fruit was delivered from the Canary Islands to the wharfs on the right-hand side. We've got a nice pub coming up on the right-hand side. You'll see a great flight of steps leading down onto the foreshore, and this pub's called the Grapes. It's quite a famous pub, and it was made famous by Charles Dickens. It was in the Grapes where he wrote Great Expectations and Our Mutual Friend, owned by the Shakespearean actor Sir Ian McKellen today. He owns that pub on the right hand side. Another the Cream Conservatory coming off it. And that is a restaurant. It's called The Narrow at Limehouse. And it's owned by Gordon Ramsay, the famous Falmouth chef. He owns that restaurant on the right hand side. The area inland now, on the right hand side, the old East End of London, folks. We have Whitechapel inland on the right, and that is where the Jack the Ripper murders took place. A number of young girls were killed by the so-called Jack the Ripper over on the right hand side. So it was a very rough, notorious place years ago, the East End. And it's of course where the famous gangsters, the Cray twins, came from, inland on the right. The funny shaped red brick building on the right hand side, Free Trade Wharf, looks like it's been put together by a couple of kids with a Lego set. And the architect of that building was very clever. He designed it so that every apartment inside has a river view. And a river view doubles the price of each apartment. So they made maximum profit out of that development on the right hand side. Free Trade Wharf. And it gets its name from the Plague of London, the Black Death. Now of course during the plague nobody would come into London to bring us any supplies. Medical supplies, food, etc. in fear of catching the deadly plague and taking it back to their own country. The only people who would come in and help us were the Dutch. And they came in for free. Even still today, if a Dutch vessel enters London via the River Thames, we don't charge them. They come in free of charge as a way of saying thanks for helping out during the plague. There's another pub on the right hand side, that's the Prospector Whitby. That's one of the oldest pubs on the River Thames to date. And it dates back 300 years. Originally, it was called the Pelican. It's had many nicknames over the years. The most famous was the Devil's Punch Bowl, because of the likes of people you would have found in that pub years ago. The criminals of London, ladies and gentlemen. Thieves and murderers, press gangers as well. You were press ganged years ago into the Royal Navy. You'd go out with your friends for a couple of pints at that pub. You'd leave there after last orders, feeling a little bit worse for wear. You'd be hit over the head as you left the pub. You'd wake up the next day on a ship. You just joined the Royal Navy. That's how they recruited years ago. The area to the left-hand side is Rotherhithe. It's of interest to any Americans on board. A bit of American history in Rotherhithe on the left. Buried in the churchyard, where you see that white church spire, buried in the grounds of that church, is Captain Christopher Jones, the captain of the Mayflower ship. The ship that left London to go and carry the Pilgrim Fathers over to the Promised Land. So what we all now call America. A lot of Americans, they like to visit the pub because they can trace their family tree back to the ship. A lot of them can, especially those from the east coast of the US. And in that pub, on the wall, they have the names of every Pilgrim Father that travelled aboard the ship. We have the river police on the right hand side, and they were invented to tackle piracy. Pirates were rife on this river years ago, and 30% of cargo that came into London was lost. It was stolen. And the common form of punishment for piracy was execution. They hung the pirates, and they hung them from the river wall on the right hand side. They waited for 3 tides to rise above a pirate's head before they pronounced them dead. And they called it the Grace of Wapping. Wapping being the area to the right hand side. And that cruel execution, say it became famous, and it was carried out by a famous judge. Judge Jeffreys, his name was. He became known after time as the hanging judge of Wapping. How are we doing so far, folks? Is everyone enjoying the commentary? Oh, good stuff. So we're only the crew, I mean, you can see that for yourselves. We enjoy doing the commentaries, me and my friend. We do have a computer on board that does it for us. We refuse to use it on our boat. Say some of the other boats, they play the computer all day long. I mean, look over there on the left. There's no commentary on that boat. All they do all day long, they press play on the computer. We refuse to use it. Say we get better feedback when we do it in the old traditional way on our boat. And that's how we was taught. To become a waterman on the river, you serve a 5-year apprenticeship. You come out here straight from school and you are apprenticed to a freeman of the river. And you start that at 16. At 21, you get your first licence. You become a waterman. You enhance the licences to carry passengers like yourselves. The first one you get allows you to carry 250 people. The second one you get, unlimited passengers, which we've got on this boat. We carry 500 people on this boat in the summer. And every trip in the summertime, this boat's paid. And as we say, we're watermen and lightermen. A waterman was a man that carried a fare-paying passenger, and a lighterman was a man that lightened the ship of his cargo. And a lighterman would row a barge up the river years ago, using the strength of the tide and the wind to navigate through the bridges ahead. Because of course the cargo could only go as far as London Bridge. Ships couldn't go any further. So they transferred the cargo into barges, and we called them lighters. They were rowed by lightermen years ago. And as I say, we don't just do this, me and my friend in there. We do all sorts of different jobs. Tugs, we tow barges and ships and all sorts of different things. And we pick up, of course, a bit of local knowledge. And we love to pass that on to you lovely people. And you can see Butler's Wharf on the left. That was a tea warehouse years ago. And the Cuttish Ark of Greenwich, the ship you saw, delivered tea to Butler's Wharf from China. They used to race here, you see. And the reason why they'd race, the ship that got here first would then get the best price for their cargo. Today, Butler's Wharf, a nice place to go and have a bite to eat. And I'd like to point out a nice photo opportunity for you. As we make our way through Tower Bridge, we'll take the arch on on the right hand side. We won't go through the middle. And the reason why, we'll slow the boat down, and as we go through the arch on the right, watch the shard of glass. You can actually frame the shard in Tower Bridge, and we like to point it out rather than passive. Take a photo, get your cameras ready. You've got to be quite quick. And you want to take your photo when you see the top of the building. See you when you get off there. And the Tower of London on the right hand side as well. Tower Bridge was built in the Gothic style to blend in with this building. It isn't as old as it looks. It was opened in 1894. And as I'm sure you know, Tower Bridge can be raised. It opens like a double-sided drawbridge in less than 90 seconds to let the taller masted ships into this part of the river. Any of you can have Tower Bridge lifted. All you do need is a boat. And you need to prove that your boat is tall enough to require a bridge lift. And it's free of charge. All you need to do is give them 24 hours notice and they will lift that bridge for you. But you do now have to prove it. I'll tell you about that in a minute. It's a secret. As I was saying about the bridge, that stems back to the days when a gentleman booked a bridge lift. 24 hours later, he turned up with his wife in a rowing boat on their anniversary. And from that day forward, you need to prove that your vessel is tall enough. Ladies and gents, can you put your hands up if you're going to Westminster? Most of us are. Good stuff. All those people on the pier, they're all getting on this boat. So if you've got a good seat, stay in it. If you want to come up to the front, you can. Do it now if you do. And as I say, most of those people, they're all going to get on here. So we are going to be quite busy going forward to Westminster. I hope you've all enjoyed it so far. I'm going to continue with the commentary. I'll stand out here with you all the way to Westminster. We are only the crew, so don't expect too much, but I'll do my best. I'll start with Tower Bridge, and it opened 1894. Designed by Sir John Barry, and designed in the... If you want to tire them out while you're in London, take them on there. They've got ramps and ladders everywhere. And by the time you get off, the kids, they'll be knackered. You might get an early night, who knows? And on the right-hand side, behind the trees, we have the white building. The name of it, Water Guard House. It belongs to the Queen. This is Her Majesty's Customs and Excise Building, which means that anything that's confiscated from you at our airports, if you bring in too much alcohol, too many cigarettes or any drugs, they are taken to this building on the right. And they are put into a large incinerator, a big fire, and disposed of. Apparently. That's what they tell us, eh? I've lived in London all my life, I've never seen a puff of smoke come out of those chimneys. Although I do know someone who works in that building, a good friend of mine, who tells me that the Christmas parties are phenomenal. It's probably still going on now. Hopefully I'll get an invite this year. And there's our tallest building up to the left, the Shard of Glass. And it stands at over 1,000 feet high. Inside the Shard, a 6-star hotel. Bars, restaurants, offices, a casino, apartments. Designed by an Italian architect, Renzo Piano, his name. A very clever man, in fact. Because they offered him £2 million for his design. And he declined their offer. He said, no. If you want my design, I want the penthouse apartment. And they gave it to him. He sold it 2 years after. Does anyone want to have a guess how much? That's a bit too much. £48 million he sold it for. £48 million, ladies and gentlemen, for drawing a triangle. I can do that. This bridge, this is London Bridge, and this is the 5th London Bridge to stand here in 2,000 years. The first one was a wooden bridge built by the Romans, and it burnt down. Most of the others fell down, all but one, the 4th bridge, which is in fact, believe it or not, in America today. We sold it in the 1970s to an American businessman called Robert McCulloch, and he shipped it to Arizona. He rebuilt it over Lake Havasu, so it still stands there today. Has anybody seen the bridge in the US? You've seen it? You can back me up. Not a lot of people in this country believe it. It's definitely there, and I'd love to go and see it one day, and I will do. Now on the left, for the children, the boys and girls, look in the dock. There's a pirate ship, a working replica of Francis Drake's Golden Plate. He was the first Englishman to sail a ship around the world. And the one for the adults on the right-hand side. Look away, kids. As we pass under the next bridge, folks, look in that glass box on the river wall. And if you're lucky, you may see some semi-naked people roaming around. Because inside of that glass box is a health and relaxation spa. They thought that they were clever by putting it under a bridge so nobody could see it. They thought they were clever by putting in one-way glass so nobody could see them, and put it in the wrong way around. We can see in, they can't see out. And believe me, gentlemen, some days are better than others. Some days are horrific. Honestly, some days you wish you never looked. And other days it gets so good we turn the boat around. We go back for another go. And those are good days. Somebody asked me to recommend a pub, which I'm very good at. Look over your left shoulder. The pub with the red windows, the Anchor at Bankside. And there's been a pub there since 1615. That's a nice old London pub. And they do a nice bit of lunch in there. And me and my friend driving the boat, we visit that pub pretty much every day. Not because we've got a problem. We have to, you see. We have to go there after work to research this commentary. And it takes hours and hours. We just sit there researching, and we're going to be doing a bit of research tonight. And on the left-hand side, the round white building with the thatched roof, a replica of Shakespeare's Globe Theatre, and the only building in London to be allowed a thatched roof since the Great Fire of London. You can go inside. You can watch a show being acted out in the traditional manner. No stage lighting, no sound effects like microphones. It's all done as it would have been done during Shakespeare's day, and it isn't very expensive. I recommend it because the cheapest tickets they sell are only £10. And £10. Is everyone enjoying the live commentary so far? Well, my favourite building, up to the right-hand side, the dome, the Golden Cross, St Paul's Cathedral, and the masterpiece of Sir Christopher Wren. It took them 35 years to construct it, at the price of only £75,000. And it stands 365 feet high, 1 foot for every day of the year. And I've got a tip for you. You can visit St Paul's for free. Go on Sunday. It's a church. Sunday morning, 10 o'clock, you can go inside and watch a service at St Paul's. What a great experience to see a service in that building. I took my little girl not so long ago, and it was fantastic. And I say it's free. It is a church. They'll get you at the end of the service. You'll see a gentleman, he walks around the building with a silver champagne bucket. If you've enjoyed the service, you drop a little something in. You put some money in the bucket. And as I'm sure you can imagine, it's very, very quiet inside. And they do make it known to you that they prefer the silent donation. A 5, 10, 20 or a 50. Depends how much you've enjoyed it. I'll give them a 20 normally. And the bridges we're approaching now are the Blackfriars Bridges, known in London, ladies and gentlemen, as the Bridges of Love. And we have a tradition. As you pass under the Red Bridge, the second one, you give your loved one a kiss. It will bring you many years of happiness. So don't be shy, pucker up. If you are not with your loved one today, don't worry. Kiss your husband or your wife, that will work the same. Any single ladies can come and kiss me. And any single gentleman, our friend is very open-minded. It will take whatever he can get him. On the right-hand side, the white building with the green sloping roof is the old City of London School, where most of our past Prime Ministers and Members of Parliament gained their early education before going on to Oxford or Cambridge universities. And that building today is owned by JP Morgan, the very wealthy American bank. And on the left we have the red brick building, Stamford Wharf it's called, a refrigeration warehouse years ago, taken over by Oxo. They're a gravy company, and on top of the building, where the glass canopy is, you'll find a restaurant, and it's owned by Harvey Nichols. The Oxo Tower restaurant, said to be one of the top 5 restaurants in London. Quite expensive, as I'm sure you can imagine, but it is very nice, and you do get great views over London from the top. And if you look very closely on, it's an exclusive club, and the leader, the head of that drinking club, ladies and gentlemen, is Prince Charles, who we often see. Can't miss him, can you? We often see Prince Charles and Camilla. They're usually stumbling around on the front deck, reenacting Titanic after a few too many. And I'm sure you can all see that now. On the left-hand side, behind the trees, see the concrete building with the flashing signboard. It looks a little bit like a car park. And that's actually London's Royal National Theatre. You wouldn't think so to look at it. Voted year after year by some of the country's leading architects as the ugliest building in London. And I'm sure that you'll agree. But you know what they say, you mustn't judge a book by the cover. Inside of that ugly building are 3 of the best theatres in this country. And the next bridge is Waterloo Bridge. It has a nickname in London, the Ladies' Bridge, we call it. And the reason why, it was constructed by ladies. The men were away, they were fighting at war. And say the ladies, they built the bridge. They did a fantastic job. The ladies faced it in a self-cleansing stone, a Portland stone, and every time it rains in London, the bridge gets a thorough clean. As we pass under it, look to either side and look above. It's very dirty where the rain doesn't penetrate. On the outside, still as good as new. And you can see bullet holes on the bridge, just up to the left. The ladies came under enemy air fire whilst they were building it. And they still built the only bridge in London finished on time and under budget. So well done to the girls. They did a fantastic job. Well done, ladies. Take a photo on the right of London's oldest monument. You only really see it properly from the river. The best way to see London is from here, on the River Thames. And Cleopatra's Needle on the right-hand side is the oldest thing that you'll see in London today. 3,500 years old. And it was given to us from a thankful Egyptian government for the victory over Napoleon and the French at the Battle of the River Nile. And I say it was given to us. We stole it.
Yeah.
Have we got anyone from Egypt on board? You're not having it back. On the left we have the Royal Festival Hall, and many famous people have played inside that building. Liza Minnelli, Michael Jackson, Elton John, Frank Sinatra, Pavarotti, to name a few. And the bridge, Charing Cross Bridge, a tradition in London, ladies and gentlemen. Wave to the people on the bridge, and they say if anyone waves back, it will bring you 5 years of luck. Let's see how we get on today. If they don't wave back, it means they're from London. We're miserable people. And there's another one on the other side. Keep waving. They're the ones you've got to be careful of. And that is why we wave, because it keeps their hands busy. It stops them throwing things at you, which they sometimes like to do. And I'm not joking, they like to throw eggs, water bombs, burgers. The other day, no joke, there was a little boy on that bridge with his mum, about 8 years old, holding a McDonald's milkshake. He did it. The whole of this side of the boat were covered in pink strawberry milkshake. I see it coming. I was in there. It didn't get me. Someone threw a kebab at my friend the other week in there. He gets it all in. And we have the London Eye up to the left. I know a few of you are going on there today. So I spoke to most of you as you got on the boat. And the London Eye stands at 450 feet tall with 32 glass capsules. And the reason why there are 32, there is a reason, and that's because there are 32 boroughs in London. Each capsule represents an area. And each capsule carries 25 people. On a very clear day, you can see 30 miles across London from the top. And you can even hire out a glass capsule now for £1,000. Anniversaries, birthdays, and believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, weddings. You can now get married on the London Eye. There's been over 500 weddings on that wheel. And I don't recommend it. Marriage. The London Eye is a great attraction. Marriage is not. Now the last building that I'd like to mention for you, ahead of us on the right, and that is the Palace of Westminster. The Houses of Parliament and the seats to our British government. The clock tower you see on the right hand side is called the Queen Elizabeth Tower, and its original name was the Great Clock of Westminster. We renamed it, you see, for the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. However, we all call it, but of course, they thought it might be a little bit inappropriate, ladies and gentlemen, to name